Happy Friday, everybody. I am so glad that it's Friday today because I have been looking forward to this. Now, we are going to do something fun today with pasta. Yes, we are going to do keto pasta, and it is going to be delicious. Now, before we do that, I am just going to grab my coffee pot because as hard as it is to believe, I was busy enough getting everything ready that I didn't fill my cup. And I am enjoying an incredibly fresh cup of coffee with cookie dough sweetener, sugar-free Da Vinci sweetener in it. So there I am, not there, and now I'm back. But now I have this delicious cup of coffee. So what are we doing today? We are going to do my version of an Alfredo sauce. Now this is kind of loosely an Alfredo sauce. It has Parmesan cheese in it. I will say that. And other than that, well, it's going to taste like Parm, and it's going to be delicious, and hopefully all of you love it. Now, one of the things that we are going to be adding to our Parm today, or to our Alfredo sauce today, is fresh garlic. Now, I'm just going to move my cutting board here so that you can see this. And you'll see I have a dirty frying pan here, which is important. And I have some cooked ground chicken, also important. Now, I'm not going to be using those ones right now. But you want 4 decent size cloves of garlic. Now, if you really dislike garlic, you can do 1. Or I guess if you really wanted to, you could leave it out. My brain just can't quite imagine that. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. Now, if you really love garlic, you can put in 5 or 6. So garlic is one of those things, especially in a recipe like this, where more is better or less is better, depending on how much you love or not garlic. Now, if you don't use fresh garlic, I really encourage you, if there is only one thing that you buy in the produce section that's fresh, garlic, I think. It keeps for a long time. Get your cloves out. Just, you saw I put the knife on top of them, gave them a smack, and the reason that I do that is because after you do that, the skin just comes off easy peasy. There's none of this hours of trying to, whoops, I'm not showing you guys very well today. Okay, here we go. So the skin, after you give it a smack like that, the skin just comes off really easy. So there, you can see. Now, one of the things that I love about garlic, it's very much like onions in that it keeps for a long time. And if you're getting low on garlic and you have some time to wait, you can use these cloves. Which way am I going? You know what? I am just going to move one of my camera angles. There. It seems like I always have an issue with this somehow. Okay, what are we doing here? Well, it is what it is. Okay, now we have the garlic peeled. I'm just going to cut off the hard root end because we don't want that in our Alfredo sauce. Now, if you don't like the smell of garlic on your hands, you can always throw this in a food processor if you like. But the easiest way for garlic or onions, the easiest way to get rid of that smell on your hands is with a stainless steel spoon. So when you go to the sink to wash your hands, take the spoon and just rub it on your hands like you would a bar of soap. And that with the water will get rid of the smell of garlic or onion, I promise. Okay, if you are joining me today and you're watching me make this McPherson take on Alfredo sauce that is going to be keto and delicious and yummy, Say hi in the chat. You know, it always makes it more fun for me if people say hi, if you can. If you are listening and driving, please don't take your eyes off the road. We don't need that happening. But if you can, tell me where you're from. And tell me if you've heard me before. Or if this is your first time. And if it's your first time, welcome. And if you're watching the replay, still, please chat in the chat. So it's never too late. Now this garlic I just bought yesterday, and you can see that it started to sprout a little bit. Now you see the green bits in it. And that's okay. It's still going to be very tasty. You can see right, I'll show you. There, you can see that green bit in the center. That is the garlic sprout. And it's always better. Make sure that your head of garlic, when you buy it, is nice and tight and hard. If everything feels kind of loosey-goosey and squishy, then you're not getting fresh garlic. Now, if you're shopping in a produce store or a grocery store that takes a lot of pride in their produce, probably not going to be an issue for you. If you're shopping at a market, if you are fortunate enough to be in a place or near a place where you can buy your fresh vegetables at a market, then probably not anything that you're going to see. But definitely something that you want to watch for if you're shopping at a grocery store. Make sure that head of garlic is nice and firm and there's no squishy bits in it, and then you can be sure that you're going to have a beautiful, tasty cloves of garlic. Okay, now, this is not finely minced, and I'll tell you why I'm not finely mincing it. The finer it is, the more intense the garlic flavor. So, if you want to just dull it down a little bit, and I have chosen to today, because there is a possibility that Dell is coming home. Now, we are on different sides of the fence when it comes to garlic. I love it, him not so much. Okay, now I am going to turn this on, and I'm going to turn it on medium. Now, the bits that you see in there are from me cooking the chicken. Now, this ground chicken that I seared in here, I wanted to get it nice and brown. I don't know if you can actually see that, but there are nice brown caramelized bits in there. And now that we've done that, we have a lot of this flavor on the bottom, and that is beautiful, intense flavor. You don't want to waste that. So I'm going to heat up the pan a little bit, and then I'm going to add just a bit of water. And we are going to deglaze this pan. And I was not kidding when I said just a bit. It doesn't take very much, because we want this water to lift the flavor off the bottom of the pan. We don't want, and you could use wine, you could use milk, you could use whatever you like to deglaze the pan. Deglazing just means getting all the yummy crunchy bits off the bottom of the pan, but deglazing is a lot easier to say than getting all the yummy crunchy bits off the bottom of the pan, although it is very true. Okay, now you can see that that is coming off beautifully. Now, one of the things that I am putting in this, now I'm going to turn this up just a wee bit and boil off a little bit of this water, because we don't need a lot of water in there. So if we boil it off a little bit, it's not going to have any effect on our recipe. And we just keep on getting those yummy bits off here and make sure that they don't stick to the pan again as this water boils away. Okay, now we are going to add 150 grams of avocado, and this avocado is diced. Now, this is not as green or not as ripe as I would have liked it, but we're going to cook it down, so it's going to be fine like this. And then, do you remember a little while ago I showed you a new product? Now I'm going to turn this heat down to about a 4. I showed you a new product that I found at Costco that I was really quite impressed with, and it was cauliflower. Now you can cook a head of cauliflower, steam it, mash it, and use it for this, or if you bought some of this at Costco, you can use that. And I just dropped it. That's awesome. Spilled some. Gonna have to just go with it now. Oh, what a mess. Hate it when I do that. Now, you know, if this was TV, we would just pause it, and when you watch the never to be live TV, you wouldn't even know that that had ever happened. Now we're going to put these in here. I've got this turned on to 4. And we're just going to let that saute a little bit. So we don't want to try and brown this because it's not going to brown easily. I've got to get my mat out of the way that I just spilled cauliflower on. That works. Ugh, I hate it when I do stuff like that. It was such a waste of good cauliflower. Okay, now this Alfredo sauce, and I'm using the term very loosely, and I realize that. You can dress this up however you want. Now, if you want to eat this without noodles, eat it without noodles. But today, because I'm calling it Alfredo sauce, we're going to eat it with some noodles. And you could add a little bit more water to this if you want and steam this avocado, but that, as long as it is heated through, and it definitely will be by the time that we're done, it's going to be absolutely delicious. And the avocado, this time not being heated all the way, is just going to add a little bit more texture. And there's nothing else in it really, because I'm not adding bacon, so the texture is going to come from the avocado, a little bit from the cauliflower, and from the chicken that we cooked earlier. Okay, now I'm going to add this chicken back in here. Now I hope that you can see how nicely brown that is, because that is absolutely going to make this delicious in a way that it wouldn't have been without the chicken or if you didn't brown it. Now, I did not salt the chicken. I didn't season it at all, so I just added a little bit there. And at the same time, I am going to add, there we go. I am going to add 35 grams of butter in here. And because the pan is turned on 4, it's not going to melt super quick. Good morning, Del. It's just going to melt slowly, and so it's going to be available to everything that's in the pan. Now, the one thing that I do need to get out, if I can manage to do it without stepping on the cauliflower that I put on the floor, is macadamia nut milk. Now, you know, this is just so incredibly versatile. And we are going to add 1 cup, 250 milliliters of macadamia nut milk as soon as we get this butter all melted and things cooked down a little bit. It really does not taste like macadamia nuts. So, I mean, not that that would be a bad thing. I love macadamia nuts. The one thing that surprises me and makes me a little sad all at the same time is the fat content in it is really low. So, okay, now that butter is melted, we're just going to get that butter flavor through everything. So the fat content being really low in this is sad, because macadamia nut fat is absolutely wonderful for you. It's a very healthy fat. Now, you'll notice that the garlic is still sitting on the cutting board, and there's a reason for that. When you're sauteing vegetables, if there's any chance that they're going to brown, you want the garlic to go in closer to the end, because if garlic starts to brown, it gets kind of bitter. So we're just going to add that now, and I'm going to add it on top of what we're doing here. And that way the heat from the other vegetables and from the meat, as it heats up, is going to heat up that garlic without letting it touch the bottom and get really brown, because we don't want that. And already it is fragrant and wonderful. There's just not a whole lot better than the smell of garlic in almost anything. Good morning, Jean. I'm glad to see you here, and thank you very much for that. Okay. Now what have we got in here? We have our garlic, we have our cauliflower rice, and our diced avocado that isn't quite as... Now, if you've got a beautiful ripe avocado, I wouldn't want to put it in here necessarily unless you need to use it right that minute, because I love just mashed avocado with a little bit of TSL Organics guacamole seasoning on it. But you can mash it up and put it in here, which is going to make this dish even creamier. Or, if it isn't quite right, throw in your food processor. Now, we're going to add this cup of macadamia nut milk. And we're going to let this boil down a little bit. Set that one right there. I don't have my production crew here today, so we're making do without. Okay, now, if you have ever made Alfredo sauce, you know that it's a simple thing to make. Basically, all it is cream and Parmesan cheese and a little bit of salt and pepper if you want salt and pepper in it. Some people think the Parmesan makes it salty enough. I am not one of those people. And instead of cream today, we are using the macadamia nut milk. And it's still going to be beautiful and creamy and marvelous, because as these avocados heat up, they're going to start releasing their oils. And the parm, when we put it in here, is going to make it nice and creamy. Oh, itchy nose. Okay, so we're just going to let this simmer here for a minute. Now, I want to talk to you about something that I heard the other day. And I might have mentioned this before, but I'm going to talk about it again because it was really driven home to me yesterday. Now, for those of you who don't know, a few years ago, I took a bit of a tumble and I injured my shoulder. It turns out that when I injured my shoulder, I actually tore 2 of the rotator cuff muscles in my shoulder, and 4 years later, I'm just finding it, 4.5, I'm just finding this out. That's a whole nother story. But here's the important part of that. When I went to the surgeon yesterday for my initial consultation, we decided 2 things. First of all, he's quite sure that he's going to be able to repair this shoulder. So it's going to put me kind of out of commission for about 6 weeks, but we'll find a way to get together 3 times a week even then. Now, the other thing that he said is when your shoulder is bothering you a lot, if it's stopping you from sleeping or stopping you from doing things, he said, make sure you're taking a good anti-inflammatory. And I said, well, I have the best anti-inflammatory in the world that I use. And he asked me what it was, and I told him it was keto, and he was thrilled. And he told me that that was absolutely true. He knew. Now, there are a lot of doctors that don't know about keto, but there are some that recognize the health benefits far beyond weight loss or getting rid of brain fog, or, you know, there just are so many health benefits to nourishing your body the way the human body was meant to be nourished. And we were never, ever intended to be eating grain and sugar, and that is not what gives us optimal performance from this machine that we live in. Now, this is getting nice and hot. I'm going to turn this up a little bit, and I'm going to add 60 grams of Parmesan petals. Now, you can use grated parm, but I'm using Parmesan petals, and I buy these in a jar already petaled for me. Not necessarily the absolute best way, but there are some things that I like to have convenient, and this is one of them. Now, this Parmesan cheese, as it gets in here, is going to melt, and it's going to make this wonderful and creamy. And you'll see the milk, where you can see it over here still being kind of liquid. You're going to see that milk disappear because the parm that we just put in here is going to mix with that milk and make everything just absolutely delicious. Okay. I'm kind of wishing that I had used my immersion blender on this avocado and ground it up a little bit finer. But it is what it is, and one way or the other, it's going to be absolutely delicious. Now, the only other thing that we're going to need while this is cooking and that parm is melting, I am just going to grab a plate. And, are you watching this bubble away? Oh, I wish you could smell it. It smells so good. It is just awesome. Okay. Now, did I tell you that I have cookie dough? Yeah, it's cookie dough, sugar-free cookie dough Da Vinci syrup in my coffee, and it is lovely. Okay, now, if you're watching this, you'll see that this is kind of cooking away a little bit, but it's also getting amazingly yummy. Now, if you are watching this on YouTube, awesome. If you're trying to watch it on Facebook, that can be a bit of an issue. So if you're trying to watch it on Facebook and you're not seeing it, or it's stalling out on you, please go to YouTube. Look up This Shining Life on YouTube. That would be me. And I broadcast simultaneously on Facebook and YouTube. Now, this is about as ready as this is going to get. Now, before we do anything else with this, we're going to do a little taste test and see how it's turning out. Parmesan and garlic and salt. That is absolutely lovely. And you get that beautiful chicken broth flavor, even though we don't really have chicken broth in here. The little brown bits, the caramelized bits on the bottom of this pan from cooking the chicken have just added that broth flavor, and it is absolutely lovely. Now, you can, and I actually recommend that you do, make zucchini noodles. But today, I'm going to use a konjac noodle. Now, this is the penne konjac noodles from La Viva. And they are very filling, and they are 100% fiber. So this isn't necessarily something that you want to sit down and snack on. You want to mix it with other food. And if you've made just exactly enough of this for the group that you're feeding, then you can just mix it right in here. That is definitely the best way to go. But because it's just me today and the rest of it is going to be for later, I'm just putting it on the plate. Now, I rinsed this off, and if you're using any kind of konjac noodles, I rinsed it off in hot water, and that's important. It takes the fluid that it's stored in, gets rid of that, and the fluid that it's stored in doesn't smell real great. And I think I've shared that with you guys before. But it also heats it up because this is already cooked, so you don't need to heat it up. Okay, now let's see if we can't get a little bit of this. Now, if you want to use zucchini noodles or spaghetti, I'm using penne today, but you can use whatever noodle you like. Oh my goodness, that is amazing. You get the salty and the creamy and the Parmesan, and you get a little bit of texture, different textures, because you've got the cauliflower and the avocado and the ground chicken, and it is just lovely. So is this a traditional Alfredo? Nope, not even close. But even though it's not a traditional Alfredo, it is absolutely wonderful, and it's one more way to use cauliflower and avocados, and one more way to keep it keto without sacrificing flavor. You don't have to. And you know, I tell people all the time, and I know I've told you this before, keto is not about giving up the things that you love. Keto is about finding new, healthy ways to have it. This is a new, healthy way to have it. So, I will see you Sunday morning, 10 a.m. You're going to want to be here on Sunday morning because on Sunday morning we are going to make egg drop soup. What is egg drop soup? Join me on Sunday morning and you will find out. It's delicious. You're going to love it. And I can't wait to be here with you. So between now and then, please do your very best to live your best version of this shining life. That's what I'm going to do. And I hope you have a wonderful Friday and Saturday. And I will see you Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Mountain. You don't want to miss it. Egg drop